Hey everyone, welcome once again to the AMC podcast. Today we have a very special guest, someone I've been wanting to get on for quite some time now. Someone that I've had the opportunity to work with when it comes to photography and doing some sponsorships and things like that. And it's also someone who I'm a fan of. I've been watching him fight for quite some time now. And he actually just had one of his biggest fights to date, which ended in very, very devastating fashion. We have Noah Aldana here. I know a lot of you guys know him. And so my goal today is to get a little bit of his story. Obviously, we're not going to be able to cover his entire life, but I want to be able to introduce him to those of you that may not know him. And also, for those of you that do, give you a little of a glimpse into who he is, what he's up to, and his future goals. So Noah,
what's up, brother?
Welcome, brother.
Appreciate you for having me.
Yes, sir. So we're gonna start off. Before we get into the whole boxing thing, I want to talk about a little bit about you. So tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, where you were born, things like that.
Pretty simple, man. I was born and raised in Garden City, Kansas. Just right there on Maple Street, a little trailer park. My grandpa had a little trailer park, whatever, and gave me and my mom the first trailer. Grew up with 3 siblings, and that's really about it, man. Boxing came in later in the picture, but I was just an honorary kid, man, living right there on Maple Street. Had literally basically one neighbor, one friend that was in my age group. So that dude just became, my best friend. And, that's really like all my life was really, just me and him. Just
so are you the oldest or?
No, I'm the third. I'm the third youngest. Or what would you say is my?
Third time's the charm.
Yes. So it's my older sister, then the middle one, me, and then my little brother.
Nice, very nice. Yeah, no, I actually moved here when I was 16, so I was already a teenager when I moved here.
Okay.
Boxing, man. I've been a big fan of boxing, and we'll get into that. So early memories that you have, good or bad, that shaped you to become who you are right now. Obviously, you're young. You're still. Even myself, 40 years old, I'm still learning. Still figuring things out. You know what I mean? In fact, one of my buddies asked me a question the other day, and he asked me, "Hey, when do you think you became an adult?" Like he asked me, not like a month ago, and I sat down and I was like, "Dude, I think I just did at 40."
Okay.
Like I feel like I started thinking, a little bit different, things like that. So obviously, you're still, in your early age. But what's gotten you to where you got? What are some memories that you can share with us?
I would say, I was an honorary kid, man, always in trouble in school. And, man, I was bad. I was, running these streets and, always starting problems, man. I was always just trying to fight somebody and whatnot. And, my grandpa actually introduced me to the sport of boxing at 4 years old, because I was always, being bad, being honorary, like I said. And my grandpa introduced me to the sport of boxing, and I just fell in love with it, And it was like, through the time I just progressed, I got better and better. And, I would say that was really what it was is, I just got better and I hated to lose, and I didn't want to depend on nobody when it came down to it, so the only person I could depend on was me,
Yes, sir. I think, I've talked to a lot of athletes, and I think, and specifically when it comes to combat sports, I think a lot of athletes always, one thing that they have in common is the solo part of it, like in the beginning, right? You start off solo, you kind of on your own, you know what I mean? The lone wolf mentality, you know what I mean? So yeah, no, I totally understand that. So you started at the age of 4.
Yes.
Do you remember the first time you realized, okay, I like boxing, I'm thinking I'm gonna do it for the long run?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So my grandpa, we started off in his backyard garage, and it was just me, and we would have a trainer come in, and he would just train me and my sister. I was part of my sisters, And the first time I ever went to a boxing gym, my grandpa was like, "I think you're ready. let's take you to the boxing gym, see how you do against somebody, you know?
Yeah.
So he took me to the boxing gym, and I remember I walked in and I had the biggest, like, craziest nerves, man. And I was like, I never felt nervous like this. Like, I've never felt, you know, the tension or anything like that. And I ended up sparring the dude, and, you know, he whooped on me, and I was mad because it was like the first time I felt like I lost in life, you know? And then after he came up to me, he was like, I was crying, you know, and my grandpa, I remember I just seen that, like that proud look on his face, and I was like, he's proud of me, you know, like this is something that made him happy, but I'm crying, I'm mad because, you know, I felt like I didn't do good and he made me cry. And then the dude, he ended up giving me a starburst, you know, he gave me a starburst, and that's when I was like, you know, it's a sport, but when it comes down to it, like Eric said in the podcast the other day, he was like, it's always love after, you know, and that's one thing that I liked about it was like, we were just fighting, and now it's the love part of it, you know, and gave me a starburst, and I I was like, this is what I want to do. You know, this is my mindset for sure. I was like, this is what I want to do.
That's really a really cool thing, because, you know, you obviously, you get in the ring, you're fighting each other.
Yeah.
You know, one of you's got to win. It's rare when it's a draw.
Yeah.
But someone's gonna come out victorious. And so you're trying to, you know, you're trying to hurt each other. But then when everything's said and done, you know, at the end where you guys are both tired and everything, you know, you guys gave it your all. And there's a level of connection when you do that with somebody, when you guys are like going.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that's kind of, and I think watching like the pros, whether it's boxing, UFC, whatever combat sport, you'll see like at the very end, most of the time, like 99.9% of the time, they always end up shaking hands.
Yeah.
Even if they talk trash during the whole camp or whatever. You know, they have the chip on their shoulder, you know what I mean? But for the most part,
they always, you know, they always make up and show love to each other.
Yeah. So growing up in Garden City, like you said, you know, you did kind of get in some trouble when you were younger. What is the one, like, what are some of the things that kept you grounded? So like kept you from, I guess, hitting 100% rock bottom?
I would say I just didn't want to make my family's last name look bad anymore. Gotcha. That was the biggest one. You know, I know I was making a lot of mistakes, man. When I was like 18, like right when I turned 18, I was so like, you know, my life is good. I can do this and I could do that, travel. And that's when I made my biggest mistakes is I wasn't grounded. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so I would say like once I was starting to hear like the outside noise, and everybody's opinion just mattered to me for some reason, you know? And like it got to me, and it did break me to rock bottom. But once you hit rock bottom, the only way is up. Yeah. You know? 100%. And I would say just like I finally hit that one spot where I was like, I don't want this no more. I don't want to keep dragging my last name through the dirt, you know? So I really switched up, and I made a promise to myself, like, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it 100% and keep going crazy in the boxing sport and just make a statement, make a name for myself.
Yes, sir. You know, and at the end of the day, for the people that hated on you, because there are people that are that they hate on you, but they also want to like, hey, I'm gonna like make sure that when you're down, you're gonna stay down. Yeah. I mean, some people like have that mentality, and they give them some type of joy, which is weird. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's crazy.
So it's always dope when you have family and friends and just even people in general, community that's like, man, I want to watch that guy grow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then, like I said, we'll get into the fight this weekend. But like when we were watching you, I was like, man, I can't wait to watch you perform. You know what I mean? That's where you probably feel like this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was really cool. So obviously boxing isn't just a sport. It is a sacrifice. You have to eventually, if you want to get to that level, you know, you do have to give up certain things, right? You have to make some sacrifices. Yeah. And that is, you know, whether you're, you know, some people have substance abuse or whatever, or you're, you know, just sacrificing like hanging out with friends and families, missing events, birthdays and things like that. So what are some of those sacrifices? What's something that you've given up? Especially leading up to this fight, like what's something that you were like, you know what, I need that tunnel vision. I'm gonna, you know, shoot like a straight arrow and go for what I want. What's something that you feel you gave up that really actually helped you get to the ring?
I would say I gave up. I sacrificed my childhood, that for sure. I sacrificed a lot of it, a lot of like big family events that I've missed, you know, and my niece's birthday, just to be where I'm at right now, you know, I've sacrificed a lot, you know, and it's like sacrifices, just like even my mental state, you know, sacrificing my mental state and just getting in the ring and like little things like that. People, you know, a lot of people have said like, hey, you know, like must be nice what you guys do. And I'm like, you know, it's nice, you know, to an extent,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
but the real battle's with yourself, you know, you're sacrificing your mental state, you know. You take a hard shot and you ask yourself, like, do I really want to do this? You know, me, I know my mentality and I know what I bring to the table when it comes to that. But the sacrifices, they're crazy, man. It's something that I feel like we can't really even put into words, you know what I mean? Because it's you in your mind, you know, telling you, like, even on my weight cut, you know, I had a crazy weight cut this fight. And the way I kept stable and what I was sacrificing was, you know, losing the weight, maybe getting dehydrated. I was scared from my last fight when I got sick.
Yeah.
So I was like, I got to do this perfect and I got to do it the right way. You know, so the one way I stayed motivated was, you know, I would run and I would run by the stadium, the arena.
Gotcha. Oh.
And like, that's what kept me from like falling into like, oh, Noah, you're going to get sick again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would run by the stadium and I'm like, I'm going to fight there on Friday night. And I know what I'm going to do. And I just manifested it and, you know, would say my prayers and I just, you know, like I stayed in tunnel vision when it came to that, you know. But the sacrifices, they really are crazy, you know, and it's something that we can't really speak on, you know, because we only feel it, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of a cool metaphor. You know what I mean? You actually running around, you're on the outside of the place where you're going to go into to battle. You know what I mean? And you're surrounding it. Like when you think about it that way, that's a trip.
Yeah.
So have you ever had a moment where you felt like quitting? And then what pulled you out of that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Wanted to quit this sport plenty of times, you know.
Yeah.
I would say I was going through, I don't know if you see on my shirts, all my t-shirts.
Yep.
Mental health don't make you quote unquote crazy. Yeah, I'll make sure to get you one. I think I was going through a really rough patch in my life, you know, and I was like, I went to jail, you know, I had like all these outsiders telling me this and that. And I like really lost all motivation for the sport. And I was like, I don't want it no more. I don't want nothing to do with it. You know, like it just didn't fit me no more at that time.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, I was working in Colorado. I got a job and I was like, man, what am I doing? You know, like every day I kept telling myself like, I don't want to wake up for work. I want to go to the boxing gym. But I kept holding myself back. I didn't want to sacrifice the sacrifices that I had made already.
Yeah.
You know, and I was at work and this dude had seen my tattoo on my arm and he was like, are you a boxer, bro? And I was like, I used to be. And when I heard myself say I used to be, I was like, what are you doing with your life? Yeah. You know, like, no, you have no goals. You just want to work and make money. But what are your goals other than money? Because money won't make you happy, you know? And that's when I really locked in and, you know, I started talking to my people again and I was like, I want boxing. Like, that's the only time I could really say I felt alive, you know?
Yeah.
And I knew like I was in a bad mental state, but I made a promise to myself. I was like, I'm gonna have my comeback fight, you know? And the mental health part wasn't even a part of it until, you know, finally, you know, I got a phone call, hey, you want to fight? And I was like, yeah. I went out to a training camp in New Mexico and leading up to the fight, I was like, I only had a week. I was only supposed to be there a week, lose the rest of my weight, and then fly out to Kansas City to fight. And I was going through like this little phase. I had like this little phase being in New Mexico, and I started to go like through it again. Like I was like, oh, like, do I want this? Do I really want this, or am I forcing myself? And that night that I went to bed, I got a phone call from my mom, and she was like, your grandma got cancer, you know? And I was like, damn, like, this is a sign for me not to fight. This is a sign for me not to fight. And then, like, later on, you know, I got a phone call the next day, like, Noah, my friend Xavier, he had passed away. Yeah. You know, rest in peace to him. And I was like, what? All this is falling on me on the week of fight day, you know, like, this is crazy. And, you know, I like prayed to God, you know, I was running, I was praying to God. I'm like, why are you doing this to me, you know? And that night that I went to bed, I was next to, you know, one of my best friends, Alan, and I told him, I was like, bro, like, why is life hard like this? Like, why does God put us in these situations? And he told me, he's like, just keep praying about it, brother. Just keep praying about it. I went to bed and I prayed. And I had like this crazy dream, man. Like it was the craziest dream. And it started telling me like, no, you're not crazy. You're not crazy. And like God was telling me like, you're not crazy. You're not crazy. You're human and we all need help. And I'm here helping you and you just don't see it, you know? So that's when, I woke up the next morning and I was crying, and I'm like, man, like, this is what God wants from me, to speak to people through mental health, through this sport. And that's all I've done, and since then, mental health, it don't make you crazy. It makes you human.
Man.
So that's what I would say really like dragged me out of the situation I was in, and me not wanting to box no more was God had me go to work, sent me to work to go back to boxing, to realize I'm human, that I have mental health problems, and that I could lead the youth through the same thing. Is like, you're human, but you can still achieve everything that is that you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
because
versus you.
at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, there's always someone that's watching us. You know what I mean? Like, especially not even just the younger crowd, but just anyone in general that's like, man, I have respect for that guy. That motivates me. You know what I mean? You always have people that look up to you even when you're not watching.
Yeah.
So, you being able to get yourself out of that, and I'm glad you brought that up. You know what I mean? I'm glad you're bringing it out. Because I feel like a lot of people, they may not be boxers or anything like that, but I feel like a lot of people, also get confused too with their mind. You know what I mean? Like you saw it as, oh, this is a sign. Like, I must quit.
Yeah.
Based on everything I'm seeing, this is it.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was the complete opposite, that's crazy. And unfortunately, some people, they maybe they don't pray, maybe they don't look deeper. You know what I mean? They end up actually quitting.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you did, bro.
Appreciate you, brother.
So what about fear? Do you ever feel fear before the fight? Now, I guess there's a difference between scared and fear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do you ever feel that?
I would say I have a fear. I wouldn't save the person necessarily.
Yeah.
Because I really don't fear nobody but God, you know what I mean? But the fear of losing, that's my biggest thing, man. I feel like I've taken too many, like I've lost in life, I've lost in love, I've lost in family. I think my biggest fear other than that is to lose in the boxing ring.
Yeah.
I haven't lost in a long time, and I made sure that I train hard enough so that doesn't happen, and I don't have that fear. But I would say, like, we all have that little voice that creeps in your head, like, like you're going to lose, or you didn't train right, or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? And I would say, like, I have the fear of losing, the fear of failure, like literally baptized in fear to lose,
Yeah.
So I would say that's the only fear that I really do have, never of the person, but of I might lose. I can lose,
Yeah, and I think really, when it comes to that type of fear, it's also the fear that you might lose at something you love to do.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
100%.
That's probably like if I lose at something that I don't even care much about, not the biggest deal in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if it's something that I really love and I gave it my all, and I fail at it, you know what I mean? Not that you fail, I guess, but if you lose at that, I would imagine that would hit a lot.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure.
So, what's a fight that taught you something you didn't expect about yourself, and your opponent?
I would say the last time I lost.
Yeah.
Actually, the last time I lost.
How-
That was like 6 years ago.
Okay.
6 years ago, I believe.
In the amateurs.
In the amateurs. Maybe I'm lying. Maybe it was like 4. I don't know. But it was the last time I lost, the dude I was fighting, man, he was a tremendous fighter. Like, he really was. Like, I knew he was top-notch. That tournament was for top-notch fighters, and before I got into the ring, we looked at each other and we were like talking smack, and once we had fought, the first round, I knew I was like, man, he's strong. He's strong. He really is strong. And then the second round, he'd hit me with a nasty body shot, and it like really did take my ear out, and it made me like question myself, like, do I want to be here? And I didn't want to be there. I knew I didn't want to be there. Yeah. But I was going through like a lot of things on the outside of it too, mental things, and when he hit me, like, it just, triggered me. It triggered me. That's what it was. It triggered me. And I gave up, Like, I ended up winning the whole war, going throughout all rounds or whatever. But I knew, like, no, you just want to cover up and hide in your shell. And when I got back home, I had went to my mom's house, and it was a week. Got back from Louisiana, went to my mom's house, and I told her, I was like, I could have won, because I knew I could have won. I knew he was good, but I knew I could have beat him because I know my skills. I know what I bring to the table. And I started crying to my mom, and I'm like, I gave up. It's not that, he beat me. I just gave up. I beat myself.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to feel like that again. So, that was the last time I promised. I was like, I'm not going to lose no more. And I haven't lost since, because it really did baptize me in fear. It baptized me in fear to like, I don't want to lose like that. I don't want to give up on myself. So I would say I took something from that and, made the most of it, to never give up on yourself.
Yeah.
No.
And I think a lot of people think of fear and they think it's not a good thing to live in fear. I almost feel like it depends, right? It depends because you want to be fearful and respectful of what could be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you have to make sure you have a safety net or something you're prepared to lose. You know what I mean? But also when you living I would say scared, that's a whole different situation because now you're gonna keep away from doing things you want to do because you're scared.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Fear is a whole different thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I always tell people, when I was a kid, I feared my mom. I feared her in the sense that not like I was scared of my mom. I feared disappointing her. You're now rising to the occasion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She raised me, so that's the type of fear I had for my mom. You know, and then fear is to me is like, I guess it's almost in a sense connected to respect because you respect what you're doing enough that you're like you're living within that line. You're of that fear and loving it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when people watch you fight, like for instance, when I watched you fight this last weekend, I was excited to actually see you in the ring. But then I also saw like the way you were fighting. I was like, oh, he's on.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell you were on from the beginning.
Yeah.
And that was really cool to see. So what's something they don't see that matters just as much? So the obvious for someone watching your fight is I'm watching your footwork, I'm watching your aggression, you know what I mean? I'm watching you being technical. What's something that like someone that's not a fighter doesn't see, but that matters?
Yeah, I would say the intelligent part of it, being smart, like I was telling you before we got on camera, I knew in the first round, I was like, okay, he is strong, and, he obviously had man strength as well, he was 30 something.
Yeah.
And in the first round, I did take some shots, but I was like, I'm figuring them out, and I started to pick them apart slowly, and I seen it. And that was like the biggest thing about it was like I was being intelligent and I'm sure everybody just thinks, you just throw punches and
for sure.
Try to slip and dodge. If you see it, you see it. No, you really gotta, if I'm pushing him this way and I'm making him move that way, then I catch him with this if he throws a wrong shot. And in the video that they took, you could see, I threw a big shot that I missed, and right when I got him right where I wanted him, I stuck my tongue out because I was like, it's not even being cocky. It was just like, I got you right where I want you. And that's when, I exploded and, I went boom, boom, and I caught him and I knew like he was going down, and that's probably one of the biggest things, is the intelligent part of it, knowing where you want them and that they will move, you just got to be willing to, put your heart and mind to it, and it's going to happen,
Yeah.
And like I said, the way I prepared for this fight, I knew like everything was going to work out the way it did, and I promise you, like I believed 100% what was going to drop him was my right hand, a 1-2. And that's what, what dropped him and caught him.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, I ran to the corner and I was like I'm bad. I'm a bad man,
Yeah, when I saw that, dude, you almost went through the ropes with that.
Yeah.
And I like the only sport I follow is combat. Like I watch boxing and I watch MMA, mostly UFC. You know what I mean? So I love reading and I appreciate what happens within you. I mean, I see the punches and everything, but like you said, there's a lot that goes into you reading your opponent, learning, figuring out what he's doing, how he's reacting to your movement. You know what I mean? So those are things that like the typical fan, they don't see that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now the good thing is you got the big knockout, right? So you almost made every fan happy, right?
Yeah.
Because a knockout,
sure.
The casual fans, they want to see knockout. That's you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But I was glad that I was able to see the technical, and then obviously you getting that big win.
Yeah, man.
So that was nice.
It's a blessing for sure.
So you're 5-0
Yes, sir.
all KOs, all
sir.
technical knockouts, or KOs. So how do you stay hungry but then humble as you're gaining momentum? Because right now, you're also gaining momentum. You just got a big KO. How do you keep your mind from tricking you, like being like, oh, you got to think. You gotta make sure that you're the man, that you can do these things, that you can perform like that. But what keeps you humble?
It's crazy, man. Like recently I've been posting a lot about it. But I would say, like, right after I won, I was super hyped, jumping on the ropes, everybody showing me love in the crowd. And it was crazy, man. Like, I had the biggest high, you call it like a high, And then once I went back to the locker room, like, I was still happy, but I was also disappointed, man. I was like, I want more, I want a lot more, I don't want to settle. I can't settle.
Yeah.
The way I'm going, like, I can't settle, and I just, like, sat there for a little bit as I'm putting all my clothes on. And I'm like, I'm not as happy as people thought I should be, or how I was, and everybody telling me they're proud of me. Like, I appreciate it, but I lost a lot, man. I've lost a lot in life,
Yeah.
And going back to that, like, I've been humbled. I know what it feels like to sit in a jail cell and literally be in my thoughts and ask myself, like, what's next?
Yeah.
And I would say, like, that's what humbles me, was my past, for sure. I don't live in it, but I just know, like what's happened in my life and what I learned from it. So with that victory, like, I felt good, it gave me a high for a little bit, but I know I want a lot more.
Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by Real Men, Real Leaders, an incredible program that's empowering young boys to become the leaders of tomorrow. Through community service, leadership training, and fun, hands-on activities, they're making a real difference in the lives of young men. If you want to learn more or get involved, visit realmenrealleaders.org and join the movement. Now, back to the show. That makes sense. Yeah, no, and I totally understand you. I think I think in general, men do that to themselves.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when I first got the studio, right? I wanted that for a long time. Yeah. And then I got it, and I thought it would like be like an all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it just came, okay, I'm here now.
Yeah.
Like, what's next? What's the next move?
Yeah.
Because I know this is just one little step into,
for sure,
and
it's like a mindset thing, like always wanting to what's next after this, driving. But one thing I have learned about that is you just gotta appreciate it. You gotta appreciate the moment, because what's next after? Like, we're swinging by our life so fast that we're just pushing ourselves to death.
That's one thing that I have to still try to make sure that I do is. Sometimes it's nice to let people celebrate you.
Yeah.
Because that also makes them feel good.
Yeah.
Even if we're not in the same mindset, like, I did it, I succeeded. I think one thing I like to, or I'm trying to improve on is, okay, let people be happy for me.
Yeah.
And not fake it or anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But so I totally get that mentality. So when you think about your journey so far, what is the moment you're most proud of?
Most proud of, I would say, trying to get a message across. I'm proud of the message I'm trying to get across for the mental health. That's something that God put in my mind and my heart for a reason.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah.
What tell what it is?
Yeah, man. Just the mental part. Like I said, God put it in my heart and mind for a reason, and I just want to show people, like, we all go, like, anxiety, depression, PTSD, whatever the case may be, man. You're not crazy. I just want to show people, like, you can lose and still come back and realize, like, you are that person that you say you are. Don't let the doubts creep in and all the opinions of others. Like, it really don't even matter, man. Like, people don't know what you do every day. Their opinions should not matter. Yeah. Just do you, and those thoughts, like, when you're by yourself at home, like, just know that you're living off of, like, how would you say, like, whatever you tell yourself, you're gonna believe it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you tell yourself, like, I'm not a good person, you're not gonna be a good person. But if you wake up and tell yourself, like, I'm everything I say I am in the best possible way, then you're gonna be that. You just gotta believe it. Don't lie to yourself. Believe it. Like they say, speak it into existence, and it'll happen. And I actually learned that from my therapist. I had to go to therapy for plenty of reasons, man. Like, I was going through it, I'm telling you. And that's why coming from a man, I feel like the more they hear a younger man open up about it, the more they're like, oh, he's open up about it, but you're supposed to be masculine. Yeah, I am masculine, but I'm not a robot. I have feelings, you know, I hurt the way you hurt. I'm human, you know. But yeah, man, just the mental part, going to therapy and realizing like you're not crazy just because you go through some things, you know. And I would say like a lot of my mental stuff came from me being a little kid trying to fill a void with boxing. You know, and boxing was enough until it wasn't, you know, and that's when I started to, you know, trip myself up and, you know, make the mistakes I did. But if I didn't make them, I wouldn't be able to sit here and, you know, give the knowledge that I have, you know.
Yes, sir. Now you do have some merch
Yes.
with that?
Yes.
And how can someone get a hold of that?
They give me on Instagram, Noah Aldana. I'm Noah Aldana on almost every platform, so
yeah.
So
I'll make sure I put that on and give it a plug. Is there someone, family, coach, friend, who believed in you before anyone else?
My grandpa.
Grandpa?
My grandpa.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, anybody that knows me knows that my grandpa was, you know, my father figure. You know, my dad was absent from my life, and my grandpa really was my biggest believer in that. I could see he believed that much in me, made me believe in myself, you know, 100 times more. So
nice.
My grandpa for sure.
Very nice. Now, what was his name?
Juan Aldana. Juan Aldana. Yes, sir.
That's awesome, man. You know, a lot of young kids, sometimes they don't even get to meet their grandparents, you know?
Yeah.
These guys, my kids are lucky they got to meet their great grandparents and their grandparents.
Yeah.
And that's such a dope, you know,
Yeah, for sure.
something to have.
Sure.
Okay. So your victory, so far, the victory that you just had this Saturday, that definitely was, would you say that's the peak of your career so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The peak of my career so far. Yes.
Okay. So knocked him out. That's your 5th KO.
Yes.
And it took place in Wichita, which was good.
Yeah, crazy, man.
I don't even know, how often do they have events here? Is it that big?
No, never. Well, last time was when Brandon Rios fought.
Yeah,
Brandon Rios.
Oh, that's a lot.
And yeah, that was like 8 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, man, it's crazy.
Yeah, because I know the UFC was, but they were in Kansas City.
Yeah, that was on, what was it, like 2 months ago?
Yeah.
Or 2 months ago or so.
So that's crazy. So you kind of talked a little bit about it, but what was different about that fight compared to any other fight? And comparing them to pros.
Okay. First, you know, I would say like this is the first time I felt like as an A-side fighter being counted out.
Okay.
I felt like I was the most counted out of all the fighters there.
So you were the underdog.
Yeah, so I felt like I was the underdog. And there was like a lot of shady things that were happening throughout like the camp and like with you know, I don't even want to say like, how would you say it? Just a lot of shady things were happening.
Yeah.
That a lot of people don't know what happens, you know? And I was like, damn, I'm really counted out. And that's why when I stepped on the scale and I said, you know, I was like, I ain't even got to say nothing. I know my hands are going to do the talking. And I kept telling everybody, like, you know, like, just watch. And when we did the face-off, you know, I told him, I was like, you're cooked. You know, like, just know I'm everything that I say I am, you know. And when we started fighting or whatever, you know, once we got in the ring, I knew, like, I was going to take his heart from him, you know.
Yeah.
And I ended up, like, actually it was crazy when we both fell over, you know, he tried to help me up. And I was like, nah, because you showed me you're vulnerable. You showed me that you want to, you know, like, being soft, you know.
Gotcha.
And me, that's when I was like, he's done for. You know, and that's when, you know, I pushed my foot on the gas and I exploded and showed, like, you know, I'm everything that I say I am. That's one thing I really do believe in.
Yeah.
Is like, every time people see me, they're like, what makes you different? I was like, just watch.
Yeah.
Just watch.
You know, I think, obviously when I was younger, I did get into some fights back in the day, you know what I mean? And there are times when I did get soft.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, now I feel bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can't do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the ring, because I think once you get there, I don't even feel like you like if you do that, if you get soft in the ring, I don't feel like you are capable of getting back to let's go back and start punching for real.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. And I'm telling you, even after he said that, I could tell like he didn't want to throw at me no more. He was more, you know, he wasn't as content as he was. Yeah. And that's when I knew like I'm gonna take his heart from him, you know. Yeah. And it's crazy, man. Like you make the littlest mistakes, and you could literally feel the person's tensions, and it's just crazy, man. Like you just have to do it to be able to know what I'm really talking about. You know what I mean? But I would say I learned that I was the counted one out, you know, and I was the one that I feel like that made the biggest statement that night.
Now,
you know,
was that his pro?
that was his pro debut.
Okay,
Yeah.
so would you say they tried to treat you like a gatekeeper into the pro?
I would kind of say yeah.
Yeah.
I would kind of say yeah, because you know it's crazy, man. This dude already had a fight set up after me, so I think you know, because like I'm telling you, everybody was telling me like, dude, your fighting's good. Dude, your fighting's good. Like if they were trying to like manipulate me into believing that I'm gonna lose, you know?
Yeah.
And I just like kept on. I'm like, man, y'all have no idea. Y'all have no idea. I was training like crazy, man. People have no idea how hard I was training, and like everybody just really believed that he was gonna win, you know? And I knew that I was going to beat him, and I knew I was gonna do it in fashion. And like I said, he had another fight set up, and I was like, man, you don't even know. Like you gotta focus on me first.
Yeah, I guess that's one thing not too many people talk about is you know you get in the ring and yeah, you have your fans, you prepare yourself for it, and then someone else has like a plan where like you just meant to be walked.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, you just it's a stepping stone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the crazy thing about the fighting game too is the fact that when someone wins, someone loses.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know,
for sure.
But when you get on there, you can't think that way.
Yeah.
Because they would celebrate. You know, you got the win, you got to celebrate, you get to move forward. But if it was the opposite way,
Yeah.
it'd be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't remember who was it. Like Eric. Eric told me he told me about his fight. You know, that he got to fight a guy that was a friend of his, and when he and he put him on social media. And the guy was teasing. I was like, man, you put me on social.
Yeah.
But his coach told him if it was the opposite, they would have done the same thing. You know. So this fight, the ref stopped it, right?
Yeah, he stopped it. Yeah.
So because the guy got up, he was obviously still wobbly and everything. Did you know it was over?
I didn't. My mindset was like they're gonna let him up because like usually they let him go, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, they're gonna you know let him fight, continue. Yeah. And I just know I was gonna catch him with something crazy, man. Like I see every mistake he made. I was just watching it, and I was just waiting, you know. And I knew he was gonna make the right mistake for me to throw the perfect shot if they would have let it go. But good thing you stopped it, you know. So I'm happy we just both got out of it, you know, safe and sound, and you know we get to live to fight another day.
Yeah, because it's sometimes you know guys continue and then it could have ended worse. And maybe his career's like. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
At least now maybe he'll get another shot to.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
And I was telling Eric too, like in the UFC, you could boxing is a little more less forgiving. Like if you lose.
Yeah.
In UFC, like that doesn't happen. You lose, and you had a great fight. Like your stock still goes up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
You know? But I think where you're at, it's a little more risky still.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
'Cause you're still moving up.
Yeah.
So every fight that you've had has obviously added to your story. You know what I mean? The fighting is part of your life.
Yeah.
How did this one change your future? Because you told me before we got on camera, because I asked you, was this like how was the production? How was everything? And you're like, now I see.
Yeah.
So what is how did this kind of even see how does this affect your future, but also change your mindset towards the future?
Okay, so I would say like like the atmosphere, everything like that, it played a big part, like the pressure, you know, the pressure of everybody telling me like, man, everybody was texting me telling me like, hey, he's big, bro, he's this, he's good, whatever. But like I said, I know what I'm bringing to the table, you know, and I would say like, it was like the atmosphere and stuff that really like made me like, this is where I belong, you know, this is where I belong. Like it was new to me, but it wasn't at the same time, if that makes sense. And like after my fight, I had a long conversation with, you know, a very important person that was there at the event, you know, and we're in the works right now with some things, you know. I don't want to say too much because, you know, sometimes things don't usually work out the way you plan on them to.
Yeah, for sure.
But I would say a lot of things changed, you know, for sure, like in a great possible way. And I just gave all my thanks and praise to, you know, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, you know,
sir.
Truly.
That's awesome, man. I'm good. Like I said, man, I also, and you saw it when, I think, did Moses send you that video?
Yeah, he started, yeah.
Yeah. I kept waking him up. He was falling asleep on the couch. Like he was, because he's been sound. That was
yeah.
this and everything, and I saw him on the couch. I was like, Moses, wake up! I was
Yeah.
like, wake up! He's about to get on.
No, man, it's so cool, bro. It's so cool to see like how many people showed me love here. Cause like me, I feel like I've always looked at the people that don't support me.
Yeah.
That I don't even enjoy the people who do. But this fight showed me like, man, I'm in Garden City, Kansas. Population of what, like 30,000 people, probably a little more. And it's like people really are carrying us on their backs, and like supporting us. And that means the world, man, especially from your hometown, because most people don't want to see you do. People want to see you do good, just not better than them, And me, like, I'm telling you, everybody, whatever you want to do here, if you want to, play soccer, do golf, football, like, man, I'm going to support you because I know what it feels like to not have it, to come from nothing and really want to pursue something and to see, like, the people we've been around, me and Eric and Alan, like, we've been around some big people, big boxers and stuff like that, celebrities. And it's cool, man, like, to show, like, we're all from Kansas, Garden City, Kansas. People be like, where is Kansas? When I first went to Georgia and I was training up there, they were like, you're from where? Kansas? Where's that at?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't know where Kansas is at? It's next to Colorado. They're like, no, we know what it is, but like, what's there in Kansas? And I'm like, some bad boxers.
As you guys are in a unique spot too, because there's three of you right now that are like on the rise. You know what I mean? Which we had Victor before and Brandon. I don't know how close they. I don't know if I can't remember if they got to where they got to at around the same time. Or if there was,
I think they were right at the same time. Yeah.
So it's really cool being able to, I've obviously known you since you were a little kid. And I remember when I used to go to my brother's house and you were Moses were there. But so that's why it makes it even that much more special. Like watching you now that you're grown up and you're like, oh, this dude's like a legit athlete now.
Yeah, for sure.
He's a legit fighter.
Cool, man.
That is so dope. So personal life or boxing, what's next for you? In the ring and, beyond it.
I would say what's next for me is finding internal happiness within myself. Like I said, I seeked therapy and man, I'm telling you, I'm a lot better of a person than I was just yesterday,
Yeah, for sure.
Nah, but truly I would say like, seeking therapy helped me a lot with my mental state. Helped me just be a better person in general, and to be grateful for more things that I wasn't grateful for, and I would say like just finding happiness within myself is the biggest one, and boxing, man, like I love boxing. I love everything that comes with it. But I feel like what messed me up a lot too was I made boxing everything. I made it my whole life. I made it me, and I was living off of like, oh, I'm a boxer. People would ask me like, who are you? Oh, I'm a boxer. I'm a boxer. Yeah. But really I was like, who am I? Like, who am I really, And that's when like I started to seek therapy and I really found out that boxing is not who I am. It's what I do. Yeah. You know what I mean? And through that, I'm able to speak the message of the mental health and, all those things as well. So I would say, yeah, man, just being the best version of myself, and leading the youth into the right direction and, giving people knowledge who are, at the curve, and not really knowing what's next for them. And, and I would say that's the biggest thing for me right now. That's the goal, is to be a big mentor for sure.
Gotcha. And that's amazing that you're doing that too. That's something that we wanted to implement with Real Men, Real Leaders. Because, we start off with the kids 5th and 6th grade. But one of the components, even though we slightly touched the subject, one of the components that we were missing was the mental health. Yeah. And so we've been working closely with Compass here in Garden City, mental health, and with the goal of bringing mental health to young boys. Do you know what I mean? Eventually, we're going to start a girls program, but right now to the boys, because I feel like in general, men struggle. The struggle mentally for men is just so much. You know what I mean?
Because we're taught to, oh, you're a man, you can't cry. Nah, real men cry. Real men cry,
Yeah, no, I think men in general, society has always made it to where, men don't cry. Yeah. You hide your feelings, you keep it to yourself, and you don't talk about it.
100%.
You know what I mean? So, what's one, and even I struggle with it, you know what I mean? And I did actually, do therapy, I would say like, and no one even knows, You know what I mean? But I did it like I would say like a year and a half ago. And I was like, you know what? I need something, and I cannot pretend like soul searching within myself. It's gonna take me anywhere. I need to literally talk to someone that can kind of walk me through it.
Yeah, stable in yourself.
Yeah, and it makes a big difference. You know what I mean? It makes a big difference, and I'm hoping, you know, this conversation and you talking about it, you know, that it'll help us get the message out. And that'll help anybody who's a young kid like yourself. You know what I mean? That's going through it. That they know
For sure.
you know, there's if he who was in the ring went through that and now he's doing what he's doing, I can also make it.
Yeah, because they people be thinking like, man, you're a boxer, you should be tough. Like, nah, we all need help, man. Like we're all struggling with something. And the more open, when I started telling people like that I was going through therapy and stuff, the more that people were like, you go to therapy? Like more men were like, well, who's your therapist? And da-da-da. And I'm like, man, it's okay to ask for help. Like, that's why men, you know, men are supposed to relate to other men. You know, when they hear more men open up about it, the more they are like, oh, I don't have to carry all this weight by myself, you know?
And I think a lot of, if you look at other dudes, they tease each other, right? Yeah. Like if you have buddies or something, and I think it's just in the beginning part of it. Like if you finally say, no, I'm serious. I'm actually going to that. And they're like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh shoot. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, for real.
Initially, like the normal reaction for this is just to laugh with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I feel like men, we need to step it up and actually accept that, hey, it's okay for us to talk about it. It's okay for us. And you know, I've been talking to my friend Ronaldo into even doing like a group for guys to actually talk about stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously we'll use this platform for that too. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about anything that you like to do. What is something you like to do to have fun right now?
I would say, man, I would say therapy, but like I actually enjoy therapy, man. I would say my therapy for sure. Like that's something like I love talking to my therapist, man. I feel like it's like I don't always have to be doing like all these sports and stuff. So I would say therapy, man. I really do love therapy. I love watching UFC fights, you know, with my best friend Osvaldo. Me and him we're always, you know, we get together, watch the UFC fights, make some parlays and lose money. But
I'll do the same thing.
Yeah, so I would say that's really about it, man. I love being around like my family and stuff. I love being around my family. So
I did message Alan, and he commented on one of Eric's one of the reels, and so I told him I'd like to have him on, but really one day would be cool to have you all three on.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. We relate a lot, man. We've done some crazy things together, you know, and it's like
just go back and forth. Thing, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I know he's I watched his last fight too, and it's super cool to see you guys where you're at.
Yeah.
Because like you said, small town, Garden City. Most people don't even know where the hell we're at. And we don't really get that exposure either. You know what I mean? We don't have media here.
Yeah.
You know, I've been talking to the athletic director of the high school. That's one thing they're trying to improve.
Yeah.
Because they're wrestlers. I mean, we had the number 9th ranked girls wrestling team in the country here in Garden City.
Yeah, man.
I didn't see news about it. I didn't see articles about it. You know what I mean? Like nothing.
Yeah.
You had some girls that were monsters.
Yeah.
And they got no exposure. In fact, I'm gonna definitely have some of the wrestlers on here too, to give them a platform. But if you and hopefully find some sponsors, you know what I mean? But if you ever want to get your message out or whatever, you know, feel free to hit me up.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
You know, we'll get some stuff going. But any message that you have for anybody watching, someone a young up and coming athlete, boxer, could be any athlete or anything like that, any message that you would give them?
I would say just don't quit. Just don't quit. Be the number one believer in yourself. Don't listen to the outsiders. People are going to judge you regardless, man. People are going to judge you regardless. Do you. And just stay focused. Lock in with yourself and do what's best for yourself, you know. And you ain't got to be an athlete. You ain't got to be an athlete. None of that. Like, whatever it is that you want to do, you want to be a doctor, part of the media like you just believe it, you can achieve it, man. Just don't settle. Don't settle. Don't get caught up in all the noise that the people say. Like, anything's possible. Anything's possible.
One last thing, I always appreciate, and it's one thing that I don't like to forget is ask you, is there anybody, it could be one person, it could be multiple people that you want to shout out right now that's watching?
I want to shout out to my Aguilera family, man. I get emotional every time I talk about them. They were like a big impact in my life, man. When we was in the darkest times of our life, that family, they had their own struggles, had a family. They had 6 kids, man, 6 kids, and they still never had a problem putting a plate in front of me, you know what I mean? And I would say I wouldn't even be half the person I am, a quarter, if it wasn't for them, because they took care of me when my mom was, broke to the penny, broke to the penny. So I would say that family for sure. And I'll always, carry them with me, on my uniforms or whatever the case may be. But they know how deeply, they mean to me. So I'll say them for sure, man, and my grandpa, him being, him and just believing in me. And just, shout out to everybody, my mom, my dad, my coaches. First, God, man, I don't even know how I forgot that. First, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and just everybody's put along my path, as well as you, man. You've been, a great impact on the people, and I feel like you don't get the credit you deserve. And I mean, hopefully, these podcasts go crazy, man, and you get everything you deserve as well.
And I don't.
You're a real one, man.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. I really don't do it for me. I've been. It's one of those things that I've been talking to people, and it's amazing. It amazes me that you have people here that are stars, or that are people that should be getting the spotlight. I know more. Some people don't like the spotlight.
Yeah.
Some people, we have people that donate to the organization, Real Men, Real Leaders, and some of them they specifically ask, "Hey, don't put my name out there. I just this is something I want to do from my heart." But there are people out there that are missing out on opportunities because they don't have a platform. And so that's something that I feel is missing here, and it's one of the reasons that I wanted to do this. You know what I mean? And being a fan of boxing and combat sports, and then knowing Eric, and like I said, hopefully having Alan on, I wanted to start with athletes right off the bat. But this is going to be a platform for obviously business owners, entrepreneurs, just anybody that has a story to tell. You know what I mean? So anyway, that does it. Noah,
appreciate you, brother.
So much, brother.
Sure. Thank you, guys.
You can definitely check out his Instagram. He's got some merch that you can pick up there. Give him a follow, give him a like, share the heck out of this podcast too. The one with Eric is doing amazing right now, and just help us get the word out there. Give a spotlight to our local athletes, and definitely support them. Anyway, that was another episode of the AMC podcast, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Boom.
Yes, sir.
Really?
Appreciate you, my guy. Yes, sir. Lit.